What do you think motivates employees to come to work each morning? Do you believe that they get great satisfaction from their work and take pride in doing the best possible job? Or do you think that they see it as a burden and simply work for the money? These assumptions about the team members can have a significant influence on how a manager manages them. In this lesson, we will learn the two theories that was developed and written by Douglas Mcgreggor in his book, The Human Side of Enterprise. I am Karen Jane Balaba, your presenter. First, we'll have a little introduction on who Douglas Mcgreggor is. Douglas Murray Mcgreggor was an American management professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management, and he is a president of Antioch College from 1948 to 1954. He earned a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Rangoon Institute of Technology, a bachelor's of art from Wayne State University in 1932, then earned a master's degree and Doctor of Philosophy in Psychology from Harvard University in 1933 and 1935 respectively.
Wow!
Did you know that Douglas McGregor was a student of Abraham Maslow? Yes, he is. And he was very close to Abraham Maslow during that time. In fact, Maslow's work has contributed much to the development of the management and motivational theory of Douglas McGregor, which is the Theory X and Theory Y. In his 1960 management book, The Human Side of Enterprise, Douglas McGregor made his mark on the history of organizational management and motivational psychology when he proposed the two theories by which managers perceive employee motivation. He referred to these opposing motivational methods as Theory X, or the authoritarian management style, and Theory Y, the participative management style. Each assumes that the manager's role is to organize resources, including people, to best benefit the company. What is Theory X? According to an article from Indeed editorial team, Theory X means that a manager relies on strict guidance as their core method of organization. There are specific conditions that lead business owners to adopt this theory. Businesses that produce a high quantity of goods may rely on the Theory X. These organizations rely on repetitive tasks that produce consistent results. As long as things remain within daily processes, then the business thrives. Examples are production companies or manufacturing companies that utilizes an assembly line or manual labor. Using this theory in this type of work conditions allow employees to specialize in particular work area, which in turn allows the company to mass produce a higher quantity and quality of work. Theory X, the traditional view of direction and control. Behind every managerial decision or action are assumptions about human nature and human behavior. A few of these are remarkably pervasive. They are implicit in most of the literature of organization and in much current managerial policy and practice. These are the assumptions made under Theory X. Number 1. The average human being has an inherent dislike of work and will avoid it if he can. I know what you're thinking. I experience it too. Being lazy at work and doing other things like scrolling through various social media accounts, chit-chat with colleagues and the like. And sometimes we only want to finish the assigned task because it has a deadline. Am I right? This assumption has deep roots. The punishment of Adam and Eve for eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge was to be banished from Eden into a world where they had to work for a living. The stress that management places on productivity, on the concept of a fair day's work, on the evils of further bidding and restriction of output, on rewards for performance, while it has a logic in terms of the objective of enterprise, reflects an underlying belief that management must counteract an inherent human tendency to avoid work. The evidence for the correctness of this assumption would seem to most managers to be incontrovertible. Number 2. Because of this human characteristic of dislike of work, most people must be coerced, controlled, directed, threatened with punishment to get them to put forth adequate effort toward the achievement of organizational objectives. The dislike of work is so strong that even the promise of reward is not generally enough to overcome it. People will accept the rewards and demand continually higher ones, but this alone will not produce the necessary effort. Only the threat of punishment will do the trick. Number 3. The average human being prefers to be directed, wishes to avoid responsibility, has relatively little ambition, wants security above all. This assumption of the mediocrity of the masses is rarely expressed so bluntly. In fact, a good deal of lip service is given to the ideal of the worth of the average human being. Our political and social values demand such public expressions. Nevertheless, a great many managers will give private support to this assumption, and it is easy to see it reflected in policy and practice. Paternalism has become a nasty word, but it is by no means a defunct managerial philosophy. Under Theory X, management approaches to motivation range from a hard approach to a soft approach. The hard approach depends on close supervision, intimidation, and immediate punishment. This approach can potentially yield a hostile, minimally cooperative workforce that may cause resentment towards management. Managers are always looking for mistakes from employees because they do not trust their work. Theory X is a we versus they approach, meaning it is the management versus the employees. Next is the soft approach. Soft approach is characterized by leniency and less strict rules in hopes for creating high workplace morale and cooperative employees. Implementing a system that is too soft could result in an entitled, low-output workforce. Mcgreggor believes both ends of the spectrum are too extreme for efficient real-world application. Instead, Mcgreggor feels that an approach located in the middle would be the most effective implementation of Theory X. Drawing in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Mcgreggor argues that a need, once satisfied, no longer motivates. The company relies on monetary rewards and benefits to satisfy employees' lower-level needs. Once those needs have been satisfied, then the motivation is gone. This management style, in fact, hinders the satisfaction of higher-level needs. Consequently, the only way that employees can attempt to satisfy higher-level needs at work is to seek more compensation, so it is quite predictable that they will focus on monetary rewards. While money may not be the most effective way to self-fulfillment, it may be the only way available. People will use work to satisfy their lower needs and seek to satisfy their higher needs during their leisure time. Unfortunately, employees can be most productive when their work goals align with their higher level needs. Mcgreggor makes the point that a command and control environment is not effective because it relies on lower needs for motivation. But in modern society, those needs are mostly satisfied and thus no longer motivate. In this situation, one would expect employees to dislike their work, avoid responsibility, have no interest in organizational goals, resist change, and etc., thus creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Theory Y, the integration of individual and organizational goals. The higher level needs of esteem and self-actualization are continuing needs in that they are never completely satisfied. As such, it is these higher level needs through which employees can best be motivated. In contrast to Theory X, Theory Y leadership makes the following general assumptions. Number 1. The expenditure of physical and mental effort in work is as natural as play or rest. The average human being does not inherently dislike work. Depending upon controllable conditions, work may be a source of satisfaction or a source of punishment. Number 2. External control and the threat of punishment are not the only means for bringing about effort toward organizational objectives. Man will exercise self-direction and self-control in the service of objectives to which he is committed. Number 3. Commitment to objectives is a function of the rewards associated with their achievement. The most significant of such rewards, the satisfaction of ego and self-actualization needs, can be direct products of effort directed toward organizational objectives. Number 4. The average human being learns, under proper conditions, not only to accept but to seek responsibility. Avoidance of responsibility, lack of ambition, and emphasis on security are generally consequences of experience, not inherent human characteristics. Number 5. The capacity to exercise a relatively high degree of imagination, ingenuity, and creativity in the solution of organizational problems is widely, not narrowly distributed in the population. Number 6. Under the conditions of modern industrial life, the intellectual potentialities of the average human being are only partially utilized. These assumptions involve sharply different implications for managerial strategy than do those of Theory X. They are dynamic rather than static. They indicate the possibility of human growth and development. They stress the necessity for selective adaptation rather than for a single absolute form of control. They are not framed in terms of the least common denominator of the factory hand, but in terms of a resource which has substantial potentialities. Above all, the assumptions of Theory Y point up the fact that the limits on human collaboration in the organizational setting are not limits of human nature but of management's ingenuity in discovering how to realize the potential represented by its human resources. Theory X offers management an easy rationalization for an effective organizational performance. It is due to the nature of the human resource with which we must work. Theory Y, on the other hand, places the problem squarely in the lap of management. If employees are lazy, indifferent, unwilling to take responsibility, intransigent, uncreative, uncooperative, Theory Y implies that the causes lie in management's method of organization and control. Now, let's take a look at the comparison of two theories. In terms of meaning, Theory X is a motivational theory which involves high supervision and control over the subordinates and greater degree of centralization. Theory Y, on the other hand, is an advanced theory wherein it is assumed that the workers are self-directed and self-motivated for growth and development and takes active part in decision-making. In terms of work, Theory X assumes that people dislike work, and in Theory Y, work is natural. In terms of ambition, Theory X assumes people to have little to no ambition, while in Theory Y, people assumes to be highly ambitious. In terms of responsibility, Theory X avoids responsibility while Theory Y accept and seek responsibility. In terms of leadership style, Theory X shows the autocratic leadership style in the organization. And on the other hand, Theory Y shows the democratic and supportive leadership styles in the organization. In terms of direction, in Theory X, constant direction is required. And in Theory Y, there is little to no direction. In terms of control, there is a tight control in Theory X, while a lenient control in Theory Y. In terms of authority, there is a centralized authority of management in Theory X, and a decentralized authority of management in Theory Y. Self-motivation in Theory X is absent while it is present in Theory Y. And lastly, Theory X focuses on the physiological needs and safety needs, while in Theory Y, it focuses on the social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. To know more about the application of Theory X and Theory Y, there are various research studies that was conducted to attest this type of discipline. On a research study entitled Theory X and Y Assumptions as Predictors of Managers' Propensity for Participative Decision-Making by Travis L. Ross, published March 31, 2011. Surveys measuring theory X and Y assumptions and propensity for PDM or participative decision making were administered to 144 full-time managers from divergent industries across the USA. In the findings, results generally support Mcgreggor's assertion that managers' theory X and Y assumption are linked to PDM. Findings suggest that theory X managers perceive that PDM or participative decision-making negatively impacts their power, while theory Y managers perceive a positive consequence of soliciting employee participation on their supervisory power and organizational effectiveness. Another research entitled Revisiting of Theory X and Y, a multi-level analysis of the effects of leaders' managerial assumptions on followers' attitudes, by Said Gorbos, Farrokh Sahin, Onor Koksal, published November 11, 2014. In the design methodology, 50 military leaders completed a questionnaire with theory X and Y scale, and 150 subordinates completed a questionnaire with a scale of satisfaction with leader, effective commitment, and organizational citizenship behavior. The result indicated that the theory Y management style is significantly and positively associated with subordinate satisfaction with the leader, effective commitment, and organizational citizenship behaviors. The theory X management style has a significantly negative impact on subordinate satisfaction with the leader, but no significant impact on effective commitment and organizational citizenship behavior. The findings of the present study suggest that the theory X and Y managerial assumptions are a worthwhile basis from which to examine several important organizational and individual outcomes. Before to finally end this lesson, let's have an activity first. We're going for a couple of scenarios and you will guess whether it is a theory X or a theory Y. Upper management of a clothing store in a mall has decided that a good way to motivate employees is to consult with them about ways to bring in more customers. A memo is sent to store managers asking them to encourage participation from all employees. One store manager has hired 5 new employees who just graduated from high school and are working the 3 summer months before leaving for college. The manager scrutinizes and directs them in every detail of their job. Each time they make a mistake, they are reprimanded, told their pay may be docked, and reminded that there are always other people who will gladly take their place. Now, what type of a theory is this? Yes, you're right, indeed, a theory X. Here's another scenario. Fur is a production manager of biscuit company. Given the volume of quantity of biscuit that is need to be produced, Fur conduct a meeting with the production workers about the ways on how to meet the required volume of goods. When the production operation has started, Fur is anxious if they could meet the required volume. That is why he is always checking the workers if they're doing the job. Now, what type of a manager he is? Yes, you got it right. It's Theory X. Here's another one. Emma is an entry-level marketing employee and she works under Tina, who is a mid-level marketing manager. Emma is full of ideas for unique marketing campaigns, and while it's not necessarily her job, Tina encourages this. She shares her ideas with the other manager and sometimes with the CMO if she really thinks it is a very strong idea. Emma absolutely loved that Tina sees her creativity and hopes to foster it. So what type of theory is this? The answer is Theory Y. Now we're down to our last scenario. Jen works in sales and Dan is her boss. She just landed a huge account and she went in to tell him. Dan complimented Jen on how hard she's been working to this account, and they did a little celebratory cheer. What type of theory is this? And the answer is Theory Y. To conclude everything, Theory X and Theory Y represent two exact opposites of extreme. No person on this earth can belong to this extreme behavior. Every human being possesses the quality of both Theory X and Theory Y. Hope you learned something in this video. Thanks for watching!